Before the internet was enamored with Rocket Raccoon and Groot, even before Al Gore had even invented the series of tubes known as the internet. We here at Comic Archivist do know that Al Gore did not invent the internet, nor that the internet is a series of tubes. There was another team of Guardians of the Galaxy, now currently being introduced using people like Sly Stallone and Miley Cyrus in the hit film Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But long before that, the team first appeared in January 1969 in an issue of Marvel's Superheroes, written by Arnold Drake and penciled by Gene Colan. The premise basically is that in an alternate Marvel timeline, though we don't know it's an alternate timeline at the time, dubbed Earth 691, in 3007, Captain Charlie 27 returns to his home on Jupiter, only to discover that it had been taken over by the Badoon, an alien race that kinda looks like if David Icke designed the Skrulls. While running for his life, Charlie 27 runs into a man made of crystal from Pluto named Martinex, and together they teleport back to Earth. Meanwhile, Major Vance Astro, an astronaut from the 20th century, is told to kill his friend Yondu Udanta, a blue-skinned Centaurian. No, not a blue-skinned centaur. He's from Alpha Centauri 4. Vance is given Yondu's bow and arrow, but Yondu is able to break them out since his arrow is made of yaka, a sound-sensitive metal that can change course based on special whistles. But sadly not to the extent of the movie version. Yeah, for Yondu, there was going to be a lot of nothing like the movie version in this. Yondu and Vance meet up with Charlie and Marty, and they all band together against the Badoon invaders. And those are the founding members: Charlie 27, the last survivor of Jupiter, a colony with 11 times the mass and 3 times the gravity of Earth, giving him superhuman strength and durability. Martinex, the last of the Pluto colony, with the ability to convert light waves into bursts of extreme heat or extreme cold. Major Vance Astro, the first Earthman into space and the last survivor of Earth, who just so happens to be a master of psychokinesis. And Yondu, the blue-skinned native of the Alpha Centauri 4 colony, the last of a race of barbarians and a master of weaponry. Next, they appear in Marvel 2-in-1 number 4 and number 5, when The Thing, Captain America, and Sharon Carter get sent to the 31st century. The presence of these contemporary heroes inspires the Resistance and the Guardians of the Galaxy to rally and take back New York City. Cap, Thing, and Sharon return to legend while the Guardians await their next appearance. Steve Gerber wrote this and Sal Buscema drew it, and Gerber must have really liked these characters because he brought the Guardians back in Giant Size Defenders Volume 1, Number 5, where Nighthawk finds the Guardian spacecraft, the Captain America, and Vance, Martinex, and Yondu come out to survey upstate New York. I do love how upstate New York is this generalized term in all Marvel, so you can have characters be in a rural environment or a small environment while still being able to hit New York City in the same issue, as though it doesn't take, 7 hours to drive from one end to the other. Anyways, Vance, Martinex, and Yondu are in this time tracking Charlie 27, who is in New York City and had already stopped a mugging by the time that they arrive. The team teleports to Charlie's position, which is actually in a crowd watching Valkyrie, Doctor Strange, and Hulk battle Eolar, who was created from the radiation of a Badoon mental programming device thing. They best Eolar, and we learn that the Guardians are currently traveling trying to find lost historic records, though apparently there was no actual record of what they were looking for, since the Silver Surfer took out the Badoon invasion fleet in the 20th century. Martinex also runs into a young boy named Vance Astrovic, who prefers the name Vance Astro. Dun dun dun. In the Defender series proper, though, written and drawn by the same team as the Giant Size we just went over, with the addition of V. Coletta on art, number 26 has Doc Strange explaining that because Vance is now technically at 2 spatial points on the Earth is grinding to a halt on its axis. While Charlie and Martinex repair their damaged ship, Vance talks to his younger self, and we get the history of Earth 691, from when the ozone fell, the Bionic Wars, the formation of the Confederation of Nations. That actually was harder to say than I'd admit. The 2001 invasion by Martians, Killraven and the rebellion against the Martians, the reign of the Techno-Barons, the Second World Federation, genetic engineering allowing for subspecies for specialized planetary colonization, and then finally the conquest of the Badoon, which has decimated humanity. Doctor Strange, however, wipes the boy's mind of the history lesson, sends him home, as the Defenders and the Guardians board the ship to go to the 31st century together. Issue 27 through 29 are the Defenders in the 31st century, helping the Guardians with their war on the Badoon. Though it gets tricky as the Badoon manipulate the teleporters to send Major Astro and Valkyrie to a swamp world to be eaten by hairy Badoon women, and marooning Hulk and Yondu on a planet of drunkards and robots during the Festival of Death. With the divided team and Doc Strange out of commission as he searches for the lost companions, the Badoon Elite Guard board the Captain America, taking Nighthawk, Martin X, and Charlie to be executed. Doc Strange is able to locate and beam Vance and Valkyrie back for assistance, though it does take a little bit longer to get Hulk and Yondu. And thus they set their sights on Badoon High Command to free the enslaved Terrans. And with that victory, the human slaves are free for the battle to retake Earth. However, the Defenders are zapped back into their own time by Starhawk, a new ally of the Guardians, who Valkyrie and Vance met on the swamp planet of the Sisterhood of the Badoon. So the Defenders head home, while the Guardians stay to continue taking back Earth. What's interesting for this story is that it introduces the gender specifics of the Badoon, with not only a sex difference in their species, but culturally. The Brotherhood of the Badoon deal with childbirth and everything like that, and since they only want strong Badoon men, they send the women to a swamp planet where there's a society that I assume started out of necessity, but has grown to enjoy its place, if still horribly bitter towards the men. Secondly, we get the introduction of the character Starhawk, who will become a driving plot device throughout the rest of the team's life, for better and worse. So after that run with the Defenders, the Guardians of the Galaxy get their first real solo run in the pages of Marvel Presents, starting with Marvel Presents number 3, which, wouldn't you know it, Steve Gerber hops in to write, this time taking artist Al Milgrom with him across the galaxy. It does start more or less where the Defenders left off, with the Guardians fighting the good fight to overtake Earth from the Badoon. And of course, they do succeed. They take back New Moscow, the seat of the world government, and the Badoon are defeated. But not wanting people to give in to their basest emotions, Starhawk calls the Sisterhood of the Badoon to come and collect the men, as they have far more cause for vengeance than the once enslaved humans. The locals, of course, don't agree, but Starhawk blinds the crowd so that they can be shipped away. He has to repeat this act in most major cities, but the Badoon are now gone, and rebuilding can occur. Yet the Guardians cannot adjust to civilian life during Reconstruction, so they head off to continue their adventures and protect other worlds. First, they take a quick detour to Centauri 4 so Yondu can pray to his gods before they continue on. Meanwhile, Vance Astro gets a real glimpse of the mystery that is Starhawk when, during a heated argument, Vance gives him a mental blast that for the merest instant shows a female face part from his body. Dun dun dun! But before that can become a real issue, the ship is under attack. They tractor beam the ship that's attacking and meet their newest companion, Nikki, the last of the Mercury colony. But fear not, before real character development can happen, a giant life-sucking anti-energy being that Yondu calls Coronata eats Starhawk and damages the ship before vanishing. The Guardians beam over to the nearest planet, trying to find parts for repairs, though after a series of absurd events and people, they are beamed to a mysterious ship. Apparently, the planet that they went to get repair parts is actually an asylum planet for the mentally ill. The caretakers assist in repairing their ship, and they're back off on their star trekking, only to run into Coronata again as he's devouring a planet. The impulsive Nikki charges forward with the ship, caring too much for the lives on the planet to think about her own. The crew obviously gets devoured by the energy monster and crashes into a desert planet. Vance, who has been snapping a bit too much lately, stays on the ship while the rest of them go out and explore, discovering Starhawk and a church that worships the end of that planet. Speaking of the world, Vance decides to try and fly off planet, but instead flies straight through the sands, erupting on the other side of not a planet actually, but a giant man thing. Not that man thing. Not to mention there's this weird thing where a copy of Vance, looking young and healthy, comes onto the ship, but honestly I don't think that ever actually leads anywhere. Long story short, Nikki is used to destroy the man planet, with powers given to her from the church. With that adventure over, they fly off. Issue 8 is another history lesson one, and has the Guardians watching a holovid of the Silver Surfer saving Earth from the Badoon in the 20th century, which, fun enough, is written by Stan Lee and John Buscema drawing it. But the real character stuff is that Vance feels guilty that people shunned Silver Surfer during his time, and destroys the video in rage. Issue 9 through 11 shows us the origin of Starhawk as we start a storyline with pretty much his entire life. The issue starts with the split of Starhawk and Alita, the female that keeps swapping forms with Starhawk. And while all that's going on, the Guardian's ship, Captain America, is under attack by the armies of Arcturus. Time for backstory. So Stakar is from a genetics mason jar looking thing, and he gets adopted into the House of Ogord in the most humane way possible, where Alita is his adopted sister. Stakar, while growing up, always bucks the system, and he stumbles on a temple with an ancient hawk god statue in it. Alita follows him, they find a helmet, and Alita knocks it away before Stakar can put it on, causing it to turn her into energy and have her possess the statue. Stakar puts on the helmet then, and they're able to communicate and all that until boom, they fuse into one person, Starhawk, the embodiment of the hawk god. But since Starhawk won't be used as a weapon and will only work for the betterment of everyone, General Ogord vows that he is an enemy because of that, and he must be destroyed. And that's why the Reavers of Arcturus are attacking. With issue 10, Roger Stern takes over as writer, still with Milgram as penciler, which tells the bulk of the backstory I just said, as well as the Guardians needing to defend their ship when they get boarded. And Starhawk flies off to Arcturus to face his past. Issue 11 wraps up Starhawk's origin and the current problem, when Starhawk faces Ogor, but Starhawk's children, who have been introduced in earlier issues, just not to any real extent, attack him, leeching away his power under the mind control of their grandfather. However, the Guardians burst in, yet even they are unable to help. All Vance can do is knock the mind-controlling circlets off the kids, and the children fade into dust knowing that they were just pawns. Sweet Christmas! By the end of this series, the Starhawk backstory gets all the more convoluted and insane, but at this point, at this early stage, Stern really makes it feel grand and yet so personal, or as well as could be done in 1977. The final issue of their Marvel Presents run has Charlie 27 saving the crew from a mad computer system that had taken over a starship yard called Dry Dock. Though once he does save everyone, they bring up that it could actually be a good place to stick around, or at the very least build their own new ship. And Stern must have loved this team as much as Gerber did, because they next appear in Thor Volume 1 Annual 6, where Len Wein and Roger Stern co-plot, while Sal Buscema and Klaus Janson illustrate. In it, Thor gets teleported to the 31st century by an exploding reactor, where a mysterious man then sends him into deep space to freeze. Meanwhile, the Guardians nearly get destroyed by a laser blast, so they go and investigate, but get deterred by a meteor storm summoned by the same mysterious man. Though within that time, Starhawk does find Thor floating through space, and they bring him onto the ship. Pulling the Captain America route, the Guardians unthaw him. Though it actually is kind of sad because the Guardians' new ship is called the Freedom's Lady, so the irony is less ironic. After introduction and pleasantries are exchanged, they go in to take down Korvac. Now, Korvac's a villain that appeared and got soundly owned in Giant Size Defenders number 3. But that was apparently him just allowing himself to be beaten or something, so he could analyze and steal some of Galactus' energies, before going back to the future where he stole artifacts and summoned his minions of menace. All of which Thor and the Guardians soundly defeat. Or do they? Dun-dun. Okay, I'm gonna really stop doing that. There's a lot of dun-dun-dun moments. Of course, Korvac isn't nearly as defeated as he should be, and that leads us into the Avengers portion of the Guardians' lifetime. Starting with Avengers 197, with the phenomenal creative team of Jim Shooter and George Perez, though the creative teams will change very much during this, so I'm just going to say that it's a Marvel group effort. First up is the continuation of the whole Korvac fiasco, starting in 167 and 168 of Avengers. It starts with Dry Dock poofing over Earth in the 20th century, causing the Avengers to go and investigate. This team of the Avengers is Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Wonder Man, Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Beast if anyone's interested. So the Guardians are on the ship as well, and after pleasantries, or rather a brief scuffle between Beast and Charlie, we get the gist of Korvac's plan. Go back to the 20th century and kill young Vance Astrovic so he can't found the Guardians in the future, and then he won't be opposed when he tries conquering things in that future. But believe me, that plot is going to drastically change. Well, before they can deal with Korvac, government liaison Henry Peter Gyrick deals with some Avengers stuff, like how Avengers Mansion isn't that hard to get into when there's an 11-foot hole in the wall, and Old Man Jarvis as your security. Meanwhile, with all that going on, Starhawk runs off to fight Korvac in his current form. Through every plane of existence, all at once they fight, and it is spectacular. But sadly, Starhawk and Alita both lose, Korvac taking their life, only to give it back to them with a gloat and something that will bite his tuchus later. For the most part, the Guardians are on point watching young Vance, though aren't really seen for a good chunk of this series, given that 169 through 172 are the Avengers roster slowly vanishing, and 173 has the Guardians beam the last of the Avengers, that being Hawkeye, Thor, Iron Man, and Wasp, to an unknown orbiting construction. And whose is it? If you thought it was Korvac's, then you'd be wrong. It's Granny Goodness! I mean, it's the Collector. Number 174 is actually kind of awesome. It's not very Guardians related, but it shows why Hawkeye is one of my favorite Avengers, as he single-handedly, though multi-arrowedly, takes down the Collector and frees every other Avenger. However, the Collector gets obliterated by a mysterious blast that resonates from Earth, all because he sent his daughter down to that man to try and betray him. For shame. Yes, we as readers know that being is Korvac, though they do a good job of hiding that if I weren't reading this from the Korvac Saga trade. Number 175 and 176 for the Guardians is just Starhawk being asked to help figure out who the enemy is. But since he was recreated by Korvac, he forgot that encounter entirely and can't perceive Korvac at all. But when they do finally narrow it down, the only thing that does give Korvac away is the fact that Starhawk can't see or hear him. Oh, and we do get a full origin of how Korvac became the blonde guy he is currently. 177 is the climactic battle with a Greyhound bus full of Avengers, including but not limited to Moondragon, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Hercules, Quicksilver, plus all the Avengers mentioned before, and Nikki, Charlie, Martin X, and Yondu squaring off against Korvac. And the first thing Korvac does is blow up Drydock, with Vance Astro seemingly aboard it, and so the giant fight begins. It's actually a really valiant effort with everyone giving it their all, and they do technically ultimately win. Not by strength or magic, nor any power that they possess, but Michael Korvac died because they killed his hope to free humanity from eternity. The whole thing ends with Moondragon giving a teary send-off. Boy, howdy, everyone needs to read this. It is honestly the most bittersweet ending ever, with great writing and some spectacular character moments. Though unfortunately the Guardians after the first two issues are sidelined to being a yeah, we're still here kind of cameo spot through most of the 10-issue storyline. It is still a really good read if you can negate that Korvac had obviously been evil until this story. After that story, the Guardians make an appearance to say goodbye in Avengers 181, using a ship from the Collector's collection to get home. However, on an Avengers front, we do get Gyrich bringing up that since the Avengers are government-sponsored, they have to be equal opportunity, kicking out Hawkeye to be replaced by Falcon. It's sort of comical to look back on now, but it's not Guardians related, so that'll have to be talked about in another show. Let's continue with the Guardians and hop over to Miss Marvel Volume 1, number 23, written by Chris Claremont with pencils by Mike Vosberg. After a fun date, Carol is abducted and brought to Drydock, which I failed to mention is okay now, and Vance is back to being his chipper self and not dead. Not sure how that worked out. The other Guardians are over checking out the Collector's ship and everything else there, so it's just up to Vance, who realizes that this is the real Miss Marvel, even though he doesn't recognize the black singlet costume. They defeat the minuscule baddie, the faceless one, who's too obscure even by my standards to track down. Fine, he appeared in Astonishing Tales number 2. Thank you, annotation box. And basically, the Guardians stick around in the 20th century so we can get Marvel Team Up number 86. After a misunderstanding, Spidey joins up with the Guardians to help them stop an evil corporation from raiding Drydock. Hammer and Anvil are the mediocre villains they have to face at the end, and really it plays out pretty standard for a one-off quickie. Of course, in Marvel 2-in-1, 61 through 63, we get Starhawk teaming up with Ben Grimm to save Alicia Masters from a woman who wants to revive Adam Warlock, and it's because of love, with whom Moondragon is trying to help peacefully. So Ben and Starhawk have to go to the Baxter Building, get a Skrull ship to follow them to Counter-Earth's moon base, where the High Evolutionary lay slain. Her, the chick I mentioned earlier only goes by Her, revives the High Evolutionary, who is shocked that Counter-Earth is gone, and Alicia tells Ben to help them because she wants Her to find the love she found in Ben. So now it's Ben, Alicia, Starhawk, Moondragon, Her, and the High Evolutionary out to seek the planet. They do find the planet, and Her does actually revive Adam Warlock's body. However, his soul is in the Soul Gem, currently being held by the Gardener, so she flies off to continue her quest, and the rest can go home. Yeah, just some quick fluff there, though I think Her is actually the character Kismet or Alicia or whatever her name is, which comes up much later towards the end of the Guardian of the Galaxy book proper. For a real bombshell issue, though, Marvel 2-in-1 number 69 has Vance go and talk to his younger self, causing a cosmic fog of doom that everyone comes together to try and stop. He unlocks his younger self's psychokinesis and learns that he can actually take off his suit due to some regeneration thing. But for the group, it's huge, with Vance actually having a reason to not be a bit of a downer all the time now. Yes, the Guardians are still stuck in the 20th century, but that's where we will end this video. Don't worry, this won't be like the Catwoman Super-Binge that took months to get out. You'll have to wait just 1 week to see how the Guardians get back to the 30th century, and they get their own ongoing series. But that is all for today. If you liked this video, give us a share and a like. If there's a team character or gigantic storyline event you'd like to see on Super-Binge, then leave a comment below. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and please look at our Patreon to help support the channel more directly. It assists many of the shows on this channel, like ComicSins and Binging on Comics, as well as the A Comic a Day channel. And as always, stay golden, Inklings.